Do you freeze up when you see questions over X-linked inheritance? Well, today we're going to unthaw the mystery of solving those X-linked inheritance types of questions. I am Dr. Carmel Rogers with 3 questions solved, and we're going to talk about hemophilia and also a question over red-green color blindness. Let's jump in. Hemophilia is a genetic disorder. It impairs the way our bodies are able to clot blood, and that can be dangerous because if there's a cut and it's just not allowed to clot, then the person can bleed excessively. The condition is inherited via X-linked recessive trait. The actual proteins that are involved would be factor 8 and factor 9. Again, these are important for clotting in individuals who have hemophilia. Something's going on with these proteins, and so they're not able to clot blood effectively. And one treatment for that would be blood infusions. So let's talk a little bit about this cross. From the last video, we went over how to set up Punnett squares. And at the top, we have the mother's genotype, which is XX, and the X's would represent the sex chromosomes. So from the previous video, you probably remember that we have 22 pairs of autosomes and then one set of sex chromosomes. And so the sex chromosomes, you have an X and an X for female, and then it would be an X and a Y for male. The way that we set up this notation, again, X would represent the sex chromosome X, and then the superscript, this capital H, would be the dominant or the normal gene for that factor, the clotting factor. Now, for the fathers are going to be vertical on the side here. And this father actually has hemophilia. And notice how the superscript is lowercase. This would be recessive. Let me go ahead and just draw a bit of information here. X with the capital H, that would be normal. And then X with the lowercase h would be the one with the mutation. All right. And when we go ahead and do our cross, the way that we'll do it, let me just clear off some information here. We will do the upper left. Mother donates an X with the capital H. The father donates an X with the lowercase h. So this individual has 2 X's. They are female and heterozygous. So this individual is a carrier. As you may be familiar with, carriers are going to be heterozygous, hetero meaning different, and then zygous meaning to join together. And so joining together different types. One type would be normal, and one type would be the mutant or the recessive form. When we do the next individual at the upper right, we get the X capital H from the mother, then the X lowercase h from the father. So both of these individuals are carriers and female. Now let's go for the bottom left. Uppercase H or normal H from the mother, and then a Y from the father. So this is a normal male. And then the last individual, we get the normal X from the mother, and then a Y from the father. Now, what we see in this cross, and let's go ahead and start filling in our blanks, or your scratch paper handy, and you can go ahead and put in your answers. So the mother's genotype is at the top here. We'll add that in. The father's genotype is on the side. The father is an affected individual, so he does have hemophilia. The genotypes present in the offspring. So at the upper left and also the upper right, they have the same genotype. Then we have X, lowercase h. The individuals at the bottom are also have the same genotype. X, capital H, and Y. The genotypic ratio, that would be X, capital H, X, capital H. There are none of those. Then we have the X, capital H, X, lower h, we have 2. Then we do the X, capital H, and Y. We have 2. And then the X, lower h, and Y. We don't have any. So 0 to 2 to 2 to 0. The offspring phenotypes. All of the offspring have at least one normal allele, and that will help to protect them against hemophilia. So as long as they have one X, capital H, they will not have hemophilia. And that is the case with each of these offspring. The phenotype would just be normal. No hemophilia. The phenotypic ratio would be 4 who are normal to 0 with hemophilia. Next, what percentage of the sons have hemophilia? And again, none of them. None. Okay, did you find that one a bit tricky? Let me know in the comments. Let's move on to our next one. For this one, you'll have to actually set it up. If an affected father, so that means the father has hemophilia, and we learned about that in the previous cross. So we have X with the lowercase h, and then you have your Y. A point I want to get across with this is that with the X and Y, X is a lot bigger than the Y chromosome. So let's say this is our X chromosome, and then the Y is a lot smaller, okay? And with the factor 8 and factor 9, let's say they're located in this region, but Y is so small, it just doesn't have that region associated with it. That's one reason that males get hemophilia more often than females, because they're missing a copy already since they have the Y. And if they end up with the mutation, that would be like a double hit. They're missing it on the Y. And that's why it's a recessive trait, because a faulty copy on the X. And so when you think about the inheritance, as we go through this problem, it will be more clear, but the mother would be the one who can pass it to her sons. So let's finish setting up our cross here. And it says that the mother is a carrier. That means that she's going to have an X with the capital H, which is normal, and then an X, which is recessive. So with the lowercase h. Okay, now let's do our crosses. We get the normal allele from the mother and then the mutant allele from the father. And at the upper right, the mutant from the mother and also the mutant from the father. Both of these individuals are female because they have XX, but notice how the one at the upper left is a carrier and heterozygous. The one at the upper right, let me know in the comments what would be the phenotype of the individual who is X lowercase h, X lowercase h. And if you said that this individual would be affected and have hemophilia, you are correct. Okay. Okay, because there are no normal copies to protect against it. Now let's do the bottom row. We get an X, capital H, or a normal allele from the mother. I hope you're enjoying the session. Please let me know below in the comments other topics that you'd like for me to cover. And also, like, share, and subscribe. That will help me to grow my channel. Thank you for watching. And then we get a Y from the dad. This individual is normal. And then the last box, we have X, lowercase h, and then a Y. And this individual has hemophilia. Okay, let's look back at our question. If an affected father with the carrier mother have offspring, what is the likelihood that the daughters will have hemophilia? So this one just focuses on the daughters. 50% would have hemophilia. And the way that we calculate that, there are two daughters and one of the two, this one right here, has hemophilia. So that would be our 50%. Now let's get to our last question. And this one is over color blindness. And with color blindness, this happens because of a faulty gene that's normally important for making a photopigment. So photopigments help us to see color. And in individuals who have the red-green color blindness, they can't really distinguish all the shades of red and green. Now, with this cross, we also have to set it up. If an unaffected father, so that means the father is going to have an X with a capital C, that would be our normal. And he also has a Y. Let me just put some information here. X capital C is normal. And then we have X with the little c, which would be colorblind. And again, this is X-linked recessive, and in order for the trait to show up, there would have to be two missing copies. And again, for males, they don't have a copy on their Y. And so if they inherit a recessive, if they inherit the X lowercase c, then they'll end up being colorblind. So let's get our cross completed. The mother is a carrier. We know what that looks like. One dominant allele or normal allele, and then one recessive. Now let's do the cross. We get X capital C from the mother, and also an X capital C or normal allele from the father. And then at the upper right, X capital C from the dad, X lowercase c from the mother. Both of these individuals are daughters. One at the upper left is normal, and the one at the upper right is a carrier. Let's do the lower level. X capital C, the normal allele from the mom, the Y from the dad. So this individual is normal. And then we have the X lowercase c from the mother, and then the Y from the dad. These are the sons at the bottom here. Now, the one at the lower right has the mutation and a Y. So that means this individual will be colorblind. Okay, the question is, what is the genotypic ratio of the offspring? Let's go ahead and start writing that out. We want to put in all of our genotypes from the offspring here. At the upper left, we have X capital C, X capital C. That would be homozygous dominant. There's one. And then we have X capital C, X lower c. That's heterozygous female. There's also one. Then we have the X capital C with a Y. So a normal male. And our last one is the X recessive or mutant allele with the Y. And we have one. The last question here, what percentage of the offspring are colorblind? And there's 1 out of 4. So 1 out of 4 is colorblind, and that would be 25%. If we're looking for the ratio, the way that we set that up, it would be 3 are normal, and this would be phenotypic ratio, and then 1 colorblind. I hope you learned something new. Today's topic was inheritance, X-linked inheritance. If you'd like to learn more information over this topic or other topics, feel free to book a one-on-one appointment with me. I also do group appointments. I look forward to meeting with you soon, and let's get closer to your educational goals.